Fantastic. So welcome everybody. We are going to start in just a minute. We're going to be doing live on ServiceNow, our community webinar on what's new in operational resilience management. And I am going to start out by redoing some slides and giving you an overview, a few housekeeping issues up front, and I'll introduce you to Aswin shortly. So just as a formality, we do have the safe harbor notice. If there's any forward-looking statements in this presentation, I don't think there are because what we're talking about today is being released in the store. But if there are any, we can't guarantee any achievement of those plans. And you can read this for legalese as you need to. But as for housekeeping, you're going to automatically be placed on mute. And we ask that you use the Q&A feature to ask questions throughout the session. If you need to chat with us, we're happy to use the chat feature as well. But all questions, if you could put them in the Q&A, that would be great. Our session is going to be recorded, and we'll share it in the community right after this is ended. And after the session ends, you will be directly prompted to a short survey. If you don't mind just filling that out, just take a couple minutes. We really use that feedback to improve our presentations to you and provide you on topics that are of interest. So thank you very much. As I said, you're on a live on ServiceNow. We have a lot of future webinars and meetups and upgrade conversations across all of our product line at ServiceNow. Specifically today, we're going to be talking about risk. But if you're interested in our other sessions that we have, there's a chat link that just got dropped in. So please feel free to sign up for any other events moving forward. And as I said, we're talking about the new IRM applications and updates that are now in the ServiceNow store. We're going to be talking specifically about operational resilience, but we do have two upcoming risk webinars that we wanted you to be aware of. The first is about risk management on February 9th, and that's going to be talking about some of the AI-assisted risk management enhancements that are enabling common controls inheritance and issues tagged to multiple sources of failure. So that's a really interesting one for anyone who's interested in risk management proper. And then policy and compliance management, we're also working on enhancements there, and we're going to go over those and show you what's available in this release in the store that's available now. So again, common control testing results can be related to inherent controls, as can issues. So definitely check that out if that's something that's of interest to you. So as I said, I was going to introduce Aswin, and I'll also introduce myself. So Aswin is the principal product manager here at ServiceNow for both the BCM and the operational resilience products. He is the owner of those products. So any enhancements, features, it's his team that brings those forward to you. So you have him to thank for all of the things we're going to be going over today. And definitely ask any questions that you need because he's a wealth of knowledge. And I think you'll get some really good insights if you ask questions here. I am the product marketing manager, and I also cover BCM and operational resilience, as long as our vendor risk management, soon to be TPRM product. And as I said, what we're talking about today is operational resilience. First, I'll go over the first major feature enhancement, which is around our operational resilience workspace. And what we're bringing to you in this version of the product, we're bringing a new modern UI. We're bringing the next experience, as we call it at ServiceNow. There's a lot of configurability, persona-based workspaces. We're bringing forward the managing business services, the importance and impact tolerance assessments. There's scenario analysis and self-assessment tailored for all of these will be shown in the workspace. And with the next experience, we always also bring you the 360-degree view. So the main thing we're focusing on with this workspace is improving visibility, driving efficiency, and simplifying the navigation for you. So this is what the workspace is going to look like, but Aswin will show you in more detail when we get into the demo. Again, visualizing 360-degree relationships between your dependencies, applying context to your data, and looking at an organizational-wide view of your operational resilience program. We believe this leads to, again, increased productivity, and the simplified navigation will help you move throughout the product more swiftly. The minor features that I did mention were all the things that are, we would call them minor, but I would say that all of these are key contributors to the workspace that we're going to show you. The 360-degree view, super enhancement. It shows you a really great visual for understanding your interdependencies. Managed business services was a huge uplift for us, allowing you to define service dependencies and collect some of those resilience metrics. We enable you to have a holistic view of operational resilience, whether you're looking at things that are coming over from the CMDB, from your business continuity, your BIAs, your business impact analysis, or if you're using information from our GRC applications, or whatever IT workflows you want to incorporate into this operation. It's a huge, huge product. We call it minor, but I don't think the team would tell you that it was minor, because it's really going to bring you some impact. Speaking of impact, we also are doing survey-based assessments for these business services. We have got the scenario analysis, which allows you to simulate events in your operational resilience program. The self-attestation enhancement is allowing you to print or develop PDF reports of your resilience reporting, and it facilitates the ability to meet regulatory or audit requirements. And finally, My Tasks is an area, a dashboard for tracking and actioning all of your operational resilience tasks, whether they're individual tasks or team tasks. And again, this provides some great visibility into things that you might need to do and action in the product. So enough from me. I will pass this over to Aswin, who's going to go and demo in detail all these features for you. Again, put questions in the Q&A, and we will start to answer those as they come in. So thank you very much. Aswin, please take it away.
Sure, thank you. Thanks everyone for joining today's session. Like Ross was mentioning earlier, we are going to look at operational resilience demo today, right? I'm not going to use any PowerPoint. We will look at the application. And if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A, and we can take them up and move ahead, right? Let me share my screen. I already see there is a question from Sharat. We will take that up as and when we proceed with the demo. Sharat, please have a patience of 1 or 2 minutes. We will get there. And with that, I am going to share my screen. Let me know if you guys can see my screen and if I'm audible, if it's okay.
That's great. We got it.
All right. So the very first thing, earlier, the operational resilience version of the product was released in our previous user experience. This release, we are releasing it as an UIB workspace. That is the user interface builder workspace. This is the next experience, like Ross was mentioning. So as soon as you log into the system, based on the user's role, we have introduced 3 roles by default, but you guys can configure additional ones as well, right? By default, there is an operational resilience user, there is an operational resilience manager, and then an operational resilience administrator. So these are the 3 roles that the product ships with. When you turn it on day 1, these are the 3 roles that will be available. You can assign it to different people. Based on the roles that are assigned to them, they will be able to perform certain tasks in the application. We will go over what that is. And I'll also, when we are looking at this UI and different functionality, we will explain what these different roles can perform and what they cannot, right? So it becomes clear for you. So as soon as you log in, you would be able to go to this particular workspaces here, and you would be able to see there's a new workspace that's got released that's called Operational Resilience Workspace. So you click on that. This is the homepage that loads. You'd be able to see what are the services that you and your team are delivering today. These are the business services, which is in an active state. That's how we have filtered this. If you have this data already in your CMDB, it just gets pulled in, right? If you do not have it, for example, that was the question that we were trying to address on the chat, right? Sharat was asking, what maturity level should the CMDB be in? in order for you to start implementing operational resilience. You could have a very matured CMDB, or it could be the first application that you're implementing in ServiceNow's platform, right? Either of this case, two extremes, you will still be able to implement this. I'll explain you how that can be done as when we start looking at how the data is getting captured, right? So if this data is already available, then that gets pulled in here. Similarly, apart from the services, what we also do is identify the dependencies. Basically, these are all your different pillars. This would be your technology dependency, facilities, people, data, suppliers, right? By default, this is what the product ships with, but you'd be able to add more categories to this, right? You can add additional pillars or categories that needs to be tracked. We will see where that gets added as well. Once we have the dependencies identified, the application pulls in information from different other sources of information. So what I mean by that is, these are the red flags around your services, right? The red flags are further broken down into issues that are getting tracked as priority one issues in the issue management system. There are certain controls that have been tested recently, and then the result has come out as failure, right? So either they have not been designed correctly or they are not operating correctly. So this comes from policy and compliance application. The risk assessments that have resulted in a high residual risk, right? From our advanced risk assessment, this gets pulled in. These are the outages that are getting tracked for one or multiple technology items or a facility for that matter. Same way, there are some major incidents that are open now, some change requests, vulnerabilities that are getting identified for your critical applications or IT infrastructure, right? So this comes from vulnerability response management system. So these are all the different red flags that we are calling it as. These are nothing but the hotspots, the areas where there could be an issue that can disrupt the delivery of your business services. So these are the red flags. So there is data visualizations here where we categorize the services based on the number of red flags that are impacting them. So anywhere between 0 and 10, and then 1 to 30, and then 30 to 60 risks, issues, control failures, all of this put together. So there are certain services under that category as well. There are 2 of them to be exact. You can click on any of this piece of the pie, and then you can look at what those services are at any point in time, right? So there are drill down reports as well. Same way, the services are also classified by the importance of the service. So this is in line with the importance assessment that needs to be done. You first document all the business services in the system, and then you can, using a survey methodology, there's a predefined template that the product ships with, but you can tweak the questions as well. Once you have tweaked the questions, you can send it to the service owners. Based on their answers, the services are classified as whether they are critical, less critical, and so on. So you can also come up with your own tiering, like tier 1 service, tier 2 service, tier 3 service, etc. So this is only an indication on how you can classify the services in the system. Same way, there's also a survey-based questionnaire that can be sent out in order to identify the impact tolerance of the service, right? So this is the impact tolerance that you need to identify, which will be used in your scenario analysis as well, right? So this is different from business impact analysis in the BCM application. That is primarily done on business processes, right? The business processes support your business services here. This is a separate questionnaire. We will look at that functionality as well. So these are the pillars that I was explaining you earlier. So technology related dependencies, supplier related dependencies, facilities, people, data, and so on, right? So there are certain risks and issues that are identified that are impacting technology dependencies or the assets. Similarly, there are some that are identified that are impacting suppliers or the vendors. Same way, facilities and so on. So this is a classification of the red flags or the hotspots that are identified from various different applications that are directly or indirectly impacting one or multiple of your business services and the delivery of that services. That's what this dashboard shows. This is for the service owner or the business owner. You would be able to see these. Also, you would be able to see what are the different activities that are getting carried out in the system today. So these are the importance and impact assessments. This is kind of providing you a program overview. If you were to run operational resilience as a program, there are assessments being carried out by different people from different functions. You'd be able to get a sense of how many of them are in progress, how many of them are completed. You'd be able to see how many scenario analysis is underway, how many of them have got completed again. You can at any point in time click on the full list to get the entire list view of all of this put together. Same way, there are self-attestations also, which can be used for downloading and PDF report for audits and reference purposes. We'll look at the details of all of these forms. The last part of the dashboard, that is the suggestions section, right? So if you see here, these are the controls that are failing or not performing 100%, which the system says is a good point to start off with by fixing them or strengthening them, right? In this case, for example, there is a policy document that is not updated. So because this policy document is not getting updated, it is linked to, let's say, 2 facilities, right? People are not able to get back to those 2 facilities for carrying out their tasks, let's say. And then that in turn is impacting 5 business services. So the controls that are failing are listed down by the number of services that they are impacting. Directly or indirectly, they are tagged to that service. So this provides an idea of which are the controls that you might want to start looking at. Same way, these are the risks, the high residual risk areas. It could be from a facility related risk. It could be from data related risk. It could be from an infrastructure related risk as well. So this combines and the information from these different functions or teams, and then it just relates it to the business services that they are directly impacting. And this provides you an idea of these are the risks that you might want to probably start fixing, right? This is an overall overview homepage for all business services put together, all the operational resilience metrics. So if you think about these things, these are all different metrics being collected by different team members and different programs that are running on ServiceNow's platform. It could also be coming from external or legacy systems where we can pull the information in, and it can be used in the same dashboard as well. So this is the overall homepage. Let me see if there are any questions, and then we can move into the next section of the demo.
There are a couple of questions that came over in chat as well as the Q&A.
Okay. Let me see if I can get the.
I can do that if you'd like.
Yeah, no problem, Ras. I can do that. No issues. So the first question is from Mike. He's asking, are these pillars configured? Yeah, these are configurable pillars in the system. I'll show you how that is done, right? Just a second. So this is an administrative task where the user or the administrator can go in and configure these pillars. Like I said, the product, when you install and turn it on, it already ships with some of these predefined configurations, but you can go ahead and then change it as well. So let me just go into this one, and you should be able to see operational resilience as a menu. And under that menu, you would be able to see these are all of your pillars and entity types. So this is where the GUI is, graphical user interface, for the users to go ahead and change this. For example, I have created in my instance services, processes, suppliers, technology, facilities, and people. So you, for example, can go ahead and add one more, let's say that is called data, and point it to a particular table that will start working as soon as you do that, right? And then that will start coming up in your dashboard here as one more bar. So that level of configuration has been taken care. Let me see if there's other questions. So the ServiceNow product today. So this is a question from Paul. Do we predict the service prioritization or important business services, or that needs to be entered manually? Currently, the importance of the business services is identified by a survey that goes out, and it has to be entered manually. But if you want this to be automated, right, based on number of customers, number of other data metrics around the service, we can look at doing that. But currently it is a survey-driven identification of the importance and impact tolerance, both those values. We will look at that in detail. So the next question is in reference to issues, are these tied with SN to technology major incidents? Yeah, so these are two different metrics, right? So what you're seeing here is coming from GRC issues, right? So this one is from the GRC issues. This is from the incidents. This is from outages, right? So this is an example of metrics that can be collected from across the ServiceNow's platform and different applications. This can be enhanced as well. You can add more metrics to this as and when you start implementing those products, and then that data starts getting collected, right? We can pull that in as well. I'll show you how this is getting pulled in. Let's look at that in a minute. Let me see if there are other questions. Anytime number is shown in the graph or report, is it clickable? Yes, that is what I was trying to tell you guys. So at any point in time, you can click on any of this. So either the piece of that pie chart, or you can go into these numbers. So that will take you to the next level of detailing, and you will be able to drill deeper from there, right? I think. Okay, I think those are the questions on the chat. There are some on the Q&A. Yeah, so there is an overlap with BCM. I'll explain how that works together, Mike. That was one of the questions on the chat. The risks, the next question is from Dimitri. So it is on, are the risks and controls, they are linked with entity of business service class or business process or downstream to the underlying business service? We will answer both these questions. Let me quickly move into a service view where I will be able to answer both of those questions here. Yeah. So what you're looking at is the business services. What we have done here is essentially we have created a view for operational resilience. So this is nothing but the services record in the CMDB. If you already have it, this will get populated, this list that you just saw. Otherwise, we will be able to create it from here as well. So you click on new, that will start a new record. You can start creating by keying in the information about your business service as well. So this view is configured for the operational resilience users, right? So if I go into the services here, sorry. Let me see if I can. So these are the services, right? So based on the concept of views that can be created for the records. So what we have done is we have created one view for the service here. So if you can see here, there's a view that is specifically created for operational resilience users. That is what you're seeing when you're looking at the latest interface. This is the next experience, right? So as soon as I log in and then choose my business service, I would be able to see what is the latest importance assessment, what was the output of that, what is the impact tolerance assessment that was done as well, and when was it updated, right? It got approved, reviewed, approved, and published. That's why this is getting added here. At any point in time, I can go to the assessment that led to this output as well from here, right in this dashboard. And for my service called faster retail payments, these are the red flags. Basically, these are the metrics that are getting collected from across different applications and different functions. This is the same thing that we saw for all services put together. That was the home page or the dashboard. This is for one particular service, right? I'm the owner for this service. Let's say I'm responsible for the delivery of the service. I log in, I will be able to see these are the hotspots, or these are the areas that we need to be aware of. And these issues and controls are not directly linked to the service itself, but then to the underlying dependencies. Let's look at what that is. So you would be able to see the dependencies and the hierarchy of the service, as well as the red flags in a visualization called the 360-degree visualization. This is something new that we have released now in this release. Let me quickly launch that. We will look at that and then look at the underlying data as well that fuels this visualization, right? So what I have done here is I've picked up one service that is the middle of this, right? So that is the primary item I want to focus on. And I'm trying to get a sense of everything that is impacting the service, as well as the context in which the business service is in my organization, right? So if I look at this one, the top level is the service hierarchy, right? So what I'm doing here is I clicked on the parent. So I'll be able to see that my service, faster retail payments, rolls up to a group service or a level 1 service called payments. There's payments, under payments, there is faster retail payments. I'm responsible for this service here. Same way, I can also look at if there are sub-services under this one, right? So there's a 3-level hierarchy I've picked up for this example. You don't have to stop with 3 levels, it can be n. But for this example here and this demo, I've picked up a 3-level hierarchy, right? So under faster retail payments, there is retail adding points, retail client lookup, and so on and so forth. So these are the sub-services that are rolling up to this one, and this rolls up to payments as one of the services. So that data is available in one visualization. That is this section of the 360-degree view, right? The rest of the dependencies. So for example, it could be processes that you're dependent on. Faster retail payments needs or is dependent on these different activities and processes, right? These are nothing but the business processes. You would be able to see what those business processes are that are dependent, that you are dependent on. Similarly, you can also see it doesn't stop with the processes. It goes one more level deeper. This could be your, these are the different assets. For example, there is a facility in San Francisco. There is a facility in India that you're dependent on. There could be companies or vendors. There could be business units. And then there could be applications. These are the critical software applications or enterprise applications. These are nothing but the assets that are getting classified based on the pillars that you created earlier, right? We saw that earlier where the admin can create these pillars. So these are facility-related dependencies, supplier-related dependencies, people, technology, and so on. Based on the classification or the categories that you want to create as pillars, the dependencies are categorized as the one of them, and then that will be called out in this as dependencies. Now, the failed controls or high risks are actually related to these dependencies and processes. These essentially don't have to be directly linked to the service. They are around these dependencies and processes, and they are rolling up or they are supporting your business service. That's how this data model is done. So you would be able to see here, for example, these are all the failed controls, right? So these are the controls, these are the control objectives, and you will be able to see this is non-compliant. It is impacting a supplier called IBM, hypothetically here. This is the supplier that it is impacting. And the reason that this control is getting flagged on my dashboard is this particular control is non-compliant related to a supplier, and that supplier is supporting a process called outbound payment validation, and that process rolls up to my service. So this is 2 or 3 levels of the dependency that we have pulled in together. We will see what these are in detail, right? These are the different metrics or red flags that we have defined by default. You can very well change this name to something else. If you're looking at UK regulation, typically this is called the vulnerabilities, right? But because we are ServiceNow and vulnerabilities has a specific meaning in ServiceNow, we are not using that terminology here, but it is configurable. You guys will be able to change that pretty easily. So this pulls in information from ongoing change requests, failed controls, high risks, incidents, outages, issues, right? All of these different various parameters. These are the open audit tasks someone is not completing, for example. So you'll be able to see all of these. You will also be able to see the assessments done on this particular business service. These are the importance assessments, and these are the scenario analysis, which we will be looking into in detail next. So this is a 360-degree view of a particular business service. If I were to lay it down in a very flat structure, all of this data, right? What you're seeing here is a new visualization component we released, but the data that fuels this is nothing but here, right? So if you see here, this is the parent service, that is the payments part that we saw earlier. These are the child services. This is the next level of dependency. And then the next level is the processes that come together to support my business service delivery. And the processes are again supported by various different elements here. So if you see here, these are all the facilities, suppliers, people, all of these technology elements, all of these coming together that can support the particular business service. As and when we pull this in, we also look at the RTO assessments or RPO assessments done on these ones from the business impact analysis in BCM. Also, if they have been put through an ITDR exercise, right? What was the last event date? What was the status? And what was the actual time taken to recover them? So these are all contextual information we'll be pulling in for all the dependencies that you are needing for your business service from BCM application, as well as if you see the issues here, this is one of the metrics, right? So if you see here, currently we are pulling in only the open issues and the ones that are gone beyond the due date, right? So this is a technology related issue that is tagged to one particular IT infrastructure, right? And it is rolling up to one process, and that process is rolling up to my business service. That's why this issue is getting highlighted here. These are the GRC issues, right? Same way, there could be a risk assessment team. This could be the operational risk assessment team who's doing your risk assessments. So we just pull in that information from the risk assessments here. So you don't have to go and do the risk assessments again, right? So this just pulls in the information. So it could be also split within the operational risk team as IT risk assessment or process related risk assessment or facility related risk assessment or site risk assessment, right? So all of these are getting pulled in, and we will map it to the asset that is getting impacted because of the risk and the pillar that the asset belongs to, as well as how this rolls up into this service. So this is your process. If there was a child service in between in this link, it will identify that also. And then it will give you the entire link from how this risk is related to your business service, right? So we build the entire tree hierarchy. We're using this data model that pulls in all of this information automatically for you. You don't have to add it manually here. So it's the same way. If you see here, there is no manual addition of risks or controls, right? As and when these are getting done in those particular functions, automatically the data gets pulled in here. One more thing before we move out of here, there was a question on the maturity of the CMDB again, right? So in the CMDB, if you don't have this data and the data is not mapped using service mapping or the CMDB relationships, or if you have done BIAs in business continuity management, the dependencies will get pulled in from there in either of these three sources. Automatically, it will get pulled in, and the related metrics will start getting collected for those assets that are here, right? That's how this data is getting pulled in. Now, if you don't have a good CMDB data, what you will essentially start doing is you will start mapping these dependencies manually within operational resilience. So I'll create my service. Let's say this is going to be 0, right? I'll go here, I'll simply click on add. I can filter through based on whether it is a supplier or technology or facility, right? I'll identify the item that I want to tag as a dependency. I can select that and I can select add. So that will add the dependency here. It will not just stop there. It will also start pulling in the relevant metric for the facility, for example, that I just added, right? So this is how you would be able to build this data within operational resilience management application if you don't have a good CMDB source or a matured CMDB, right? So this will be available here. And this also has all those visualizations that we already had in the CMDB also. So this is one of them, the infrastructure relationship. And then you can also see the node map, right? So that is nothing but your dependency view. This is something in addition to that dependency view that we have created for this release. This was the services part. Let me go into the importance assessment. And before that, if there are any questions, we can take a look at that. Just give me a second. So I think we answered the risk and controls and how they are tagged to the entities. So Paul has a comment on the impact tolerances has been agreed in UK as severe but plausible scenarios. Impact tolerance to BCM, DR, RTOs. I will show you that, Paul. We are going to look at that now in detail. Yeah, and there was one at the end. If we perform separate assessment, is that supported? Okay, so there is one question there on that is also on the impact tolerance and importance assessment. Let me walk you by what we have released and how it can be configured for additional use cases. Right, that should probably give you the answers there. Just a second. So let me start off a new importance and impact tolerance assessment, right? So as soon as the user logs in, you can see there is an hand-holding for the user provided, help text in each and every step during this assessment or scenario analysis, any of those things for that matter. We will see that. I'll just provide it a name and I can add a description to that assessment. I can also pick up a template, right? So basically, looks like someone was testing this instance. Sorry about that, but then you would be able to create and park these questionnaires or templates as an administrator, and the business users would be able to pick up those templates that are relevant, and they would be able to start filling it up, right? So I can provide an owner who needs to complete this assessment. I mean, an assessor and then an approver also, right? So this is optional. So I can ask that user to approve this once the assessment is completed. I can also provide an assessment due date by when the assessment has to be completed, right? Once this is done, the user simply saves this details that you have created. And then the next step is to select the services that you want to assess. So you can, the way that we have built it now is we have made sure that the assessment that you're doing can apply to one service at a time or multiple. It's purely upon your business requirement. So you can choose either one or multiple services at the same time at one go, right? If you select multiple business services at one go, what it would really mean is the same answers will apply for, let's say, the two services that you're selecting. It'll apply for both. In this case, I'm selecting one, and let's say assess. So this would create the assessment that needs to be completed by the assessor. So that would be embedded within here. So the user doesn't have to move into multiple places to get access to this, right? Give it a second. Looks like it's taking time, more than, okay, it'll load it. All right, so what we have done by default is shown an example, right? When you turn on the application, you will get this loaded predefined questionnaire, but you can go ahead and change this, right? So there are three categories of questions that you will start seeing, very much in line with the UK regulatory document, right? Impact on the customers, what is the impact on the firm, what is the impact on the market? Like I said, these have to be answered manually today. So you would be able to provide answers to these questions, and then there can be a rationale for the answer, right? So for every question that you create in the template, there will be an option for you to mention what kind of answers, what are the options for the end user, as well as the comments will get captured automatically, right? So you would be able to create your own questions. That is, there's no cap size on the categories. And under each category, you can have multiple questions, right? You can say whether it's a drop down, a radio button, a yes and no question, all of these things, right? So this is pretty much configurable when it comes to that. So here there is a low, medium, high, and so on. So what is happening behind the scene is each answer that is being provided by the user here actually gets mapped to a score, So that is where the mapping table is. We will see that in a minute. So once I have provided all the answers, the user can submit these answers. And then it loads in a read-only view. Once it is submitted, there's no going back. That is one of the checks that we have added in this release. We'll be able to open it up in case that needs to be edited, maybe in the future, right? And then you would be able to see the importance and impact tolerance being calculated for your service based on the answers that you provided. So it is driven by one single assessment today, but we can split it into two as well. I'll show you how that can be done. This is the system calculated value, right? But the user can choose to override the system calculated value, in which case the user is asked to provide a rationale for why they are choosing to override the system calculated value. So the user can click on that, and the user would be able to see the system calculated value here. In case I want to change this, I can go ahead and change it. And then there is a comment field that pops up as a mandatory feature or a field that the user has to provide. Same way here also. So let's say I want to reduce it to 4 hours, right? So the user is asked to put this in. This is going to come in handy when you're trying to send this assessment for review and approval, right? So in the initial stage, we said there is an optional approval that is in place, right? So if you see here, in case you want to send it through an approver, this person would get that. They'll be able to see what is the system suggested value, what is the user changed it into. They can look at the reason for that, and then they can say approved. So this person, once they are done with all of this override and providing the answers, you can simply say request for approval. This will actually kickstart a workflow. This would have gone to the next person in line, right? So that is how the importance assessment is done. Just a second, let me also show you the, one second. So what we have done today is these are the assessment templates. You can create your own assessment templates here, right? There's a graphical user interface for that. You would be able to go ahead and do a mapping for your impact tolerance, right? So Paul, you were mentioning whether it is severe or plausible scenarios, right? So basically you'd be able to get that done, and then you can say, what is the importance? So in this case, I've chosen a 4 scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And then most critical all the way to not critical. So you can change this part and you can call it tier 1, tier 2, or severe, whatever that is, right? You can come up with your own terminology, as well as the impact tolerance. I've chosen it as 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day. We're keeping it very simple, right? So you can choose it to 15 minutes to 4 hours, 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever that is. Similarly, in the reports and in the visualizations, right? So there is an icon that will be used if it falls under this one. What will be the color that needs to be used for that? And this is the score, basically. So based on the survey that you take, there's a score that is calculated. And based on where that score is, these two will be populated as by default or the system calculated value, which the user can override. So that's what happened here, right? So the overridden importance or impact tolerance can be done by the user, but these two will be calculated based on the answers provided for all these questions that we just saw earlier. And the same thing is used in this particular view. This is where you will see that the icon and then the color for certain things are picked up from. All of that is configurable as well. We have made it pretty easy for you to go ahead and change that according to the classifications you need and make sense for you guys. That was importance and impact tolerance assessment. We are doing it today only based on date time, right? So the impact tolerance is based on number of days and hours and time, but we can expand it to other parameters in case you want to track impact tolerance in terms of the percentage of transactions getting completed, number of customers getting served, or it could be data, right? Compromise and things like that. So that can be added as well. What I showed you was the placeholder for the date time, how it is done today. you would be able to add additional parameters to that as well. So that brings us to scenario analysis. In scenario analysis, let me start an analysis new now. There are a bunch of features that we have added here also. So I'll just take the same example as a name. So I can provide a description, a goal for the next participants who are going to be tagged in this analysis part. I can provide when the analysis should start. For the simplicity, I'm selecting the same day as the start date. And you can also say who is the owner, right? So we can pick up one of the owners here. And plan approver is the person who will be approving the analysis before the participants are notified, right? So that can be one level of check. And then once the analysis is complete, the results can be reviewed and approved by the same person or a different person. So this is another level of approval that can be optional, purely optional, that you can select based on your business requirements again, right? Once I have done that, I can save this. And that's when the user would be taken to the screen where you can select the scenarios that you want to consider. So there is a central library of scenarios that is created and maintained. The business users would be able to go into this analysis form. When you're doing the scoping for the analysis, you can go ahead and select. In this case, I'm going to pick up some infrastructure related outages, right? So let's say facility outage and power outage. So these are two things. They are related to a flooding situation into some of our critical facilities. So this is what we want to assess today, right? Once I have added the scenarios to be considered, the next one is who are the different people from different functions that I want to invite for this analysis, right? So I'll be able to select those users from, let's say, HR, technology, etc. So you can pick up those users. These are the participants. So the participants that load here for selection are the operational resilience users, right? The people who are creating and maintaining the scenario analysis or completing the impact tolerance are the operational resilience managers. So these people can be from different functions, for example, HR or from technology or finance, etc. You can provide an instruction for that person when they receive an email for getting nominated for participating in this particular analysis. They will be getting this instruction sent to them as well, right? I'm just creating this now, right? I can add any attachment that needs to be sent to this person as well. So I'll be able to add multiple different participants from different teams who will be part of this particular analysis here. So they will get notified when the start date actually arrives, right? So that's what you're seeing here as an help text here. You'll be able to add multiple participants, and then we can say what are the dependencies that we want to consider for our assessment. So let's say we are looking at a particular building, let's say the Texas one, right? So this is the facility that we want to consider. So once you have identified that, what is the asset that you want to put through or you want to consider for the analysis? The next one is the services. The system automatically tells you what are the services that will experience a downtime because this facility is going to be hit, right? So I can go to the services here. I can click on add dependent services. I will see that these are the 4 or 5 services, in this case 4 services that is going to have an impact because the facility in Texas is going to be flooded. Now, this relationship comes from the same data that you guys were seeing earlier. So the service has been mapped to a particular business process, and the business process was tagged to this particular facility. So when you're doing a scenario analysis, the same data is referenced, and the system suggests this is the scenario that you want to consider, right? There was a facility outage scenario, and that's a flooding situation, right? And you're saying that this is going to happen in this particular facility. The system automatically tells you these are the services that will be impacted because of the downtime of that particular facility. So you can choose all of them or one of them based on who's doing the analysis and what you're responsible for. You'll be able to add all of these here. and then you can send it for a plan approval. Once approved, the individual participants will get a task assigned to them. They will be able to provide their analysis here, and finally the operational resilience manager would be able to collect all of those analysis and see which services are going to be breaching the impact tolerance. Basically, 8 hours is what we created recently, right? If there are multiple scenarios that come together and it is going to be having an impact of, let's say, 12 hours, that means the impact tolerance of this particular service will be breached. This will turn into a breach status and by what percentage it got breached. That is how the analysis will be completed. You can track all your action items and findings as issues. So you'll be able to send that to the issue management system. This is the GRC issues. You'll be able to track all the action plans, everything as issues here. So let me try to quickly log in or log out and then get this approved. Just give me a second. So we can complete this analysis piece, right? But while that happens, if there is any other questions, we can take that up.
Yeah, one of the questions came in again is when does customization of templates field structure become a problem for future ServiceNow releases?
Customization. So if you're looking at adding or changing the layouts of the UI, adding new fields, etc., Paul, it is not a customization. It is an configuration. Basically, you can just add the new fields, and that would be treated as a configuration. So your future upgrades of ServiceNow doesn't have any issue, right? It will be seamless. So that is how we treat that. But if you have any specific questions on that, I'm happy to take that up. After this meeting, I can explain you how that works, the implementation at ServiceNow, how it will impact your instance and future upgrades. Really, it is like if you look at the forms, the workspaces, all of these are pretty much configurable. So for example, this home page, you'll be able to drag drop, you'll be able to create new charts, any of that stuff, right? That's all configuration. It's not going to impact your future upgrades. Same way in the forms that you look at, any of this form, right? If you want to add a new section, add a new field, add some validation, make something mandatory, all of those are configurations as well. So there are certain things that fall under customization category. I can explain that to you probably after this. We might not have time for going over everything there. Okay, I did the approval. Let me see if I can go back to the user that we started with. We can look at how that comes up and how we can start that stuff. So this is the scenario analysis piece. Okay, this is under the analyzed state, right? That means it's moved under the analysis state. The individual users would have gotten their request for response. So when it moves into an analyzed state, that's when you will start seeing this responses tab. So the individual users that we tagged as participants, currently in this version of the release, they will be able to provide their input, but then we have locked it down. That is, John Doe in this case will not be able to see, let's say, Ashwin's responses, right? And Ashwin will not be able to see John's responses. But then the manager who is conducting this entire exercise would have access to everybody's responses individually, and they can go ahead and they can complete this as well. So let me look at the scenarios that we have. Let me pick up one of them to quickly show you how this can impact the output, right? Let us say, just to get some data going, I selected some 21 days. All right. So once that dependency or that particular data entry is being made for every single dependency, every single events by the participants and by the user who is providing that details here, where we have to tag that particular service to the event and the dependency as well. Just a second, let me see if I can tag that from here quickly. This is the one, right? So what we have done here is we have created it like a slush bucket. Basically, you can tag an event to an service or a service to an event. Similarly, the assets also, right? So it's a end-to-end mapping. You can pick up an event from here, or you can pick up a scenario for service from here. Same way the dependencies and participants also. You can add it at any point in time. And this is a combination of the event impacting a particular dependency, which is in turn having an impact on the business service. So this is how it will start looking up. So this impact tolerance comes from your assessment that we did earlier using a survey. And this is coming up from the impacted asset, right? We are saying it will be down for 21 days for this example. So it just does a comparison and then says, what is the deviation? What is the percentage breached? Whether it is breached or not, the impact tolerance, right? So this is the analysis piece. Once this is done, you will be able to go ahead and add an existing issue or identify an existing issue, or you can go ahead and then report a new one altogether. So this will be tagged with this particular scenario analysis and the name and date. So you can have a backtracking at any point in time. You can go into the issue management system and then see what is the status of this. If you are looking at it from this also, you will get a recent state of that issue and who's working on it. What is the progress made on that from within here. This is the scenario analysis piece where you would be able to tag it to scenario from a central library, then the dependencies, and then the services, and also how you can track your issues and findings. And then we also introduced what we are calling as the My Tasks. This is one of the newer features as well. Instead of going into multiple different areas to accessing your tasks, right? All of these items that are assigned to a particular user, I've logged in as one of the users here. Everything that is assigned to this particular user will be parked under My Tasks. Everything that the person has to complete will be under My Pending Tasks. If there is something that the person has to review and approve, they will be under My Items. And if I have created something in the past, right? I started an issue, or I reported an incident, or I have created a business service, I updated an assessment. All of those things that I worked in the past will be under the watch list. So everything that the user needs access to can be provided from here. The user just has to log in and then go to the tasks. They will be able to get access to everything that they're supposed to work on and complete. This is also something new that we released. There is also one more dashboard. I thought I'll touch upon it at the end if we have time. Looks like we can go over this. So this particular dashboard called pillars, right? So there's a filter at the top. It can be filtered based on facilities, people, processes, technology, etc. Right? So I can go with technology for now. Let's say if this is someone who's logging in from the technology team or the IT team, they'll be able to see there are 33 critical applications me and my team are supporting today. By making sure these services are up and running, we are supporting 6 different business services. So what we have tried here is to provide a business context to the different pillar owners, right? Currently, they don't know what is the business service we are supporting. If my critical application, for example, goes down, what are the services that may see an impact, right? So we have tried to bridge that view as well. So if you think about it, it's the same data model, right? The services dependent on processes dependent on, let's say, technology assets. So we just draw back and then pull that information in. Same way, the IT risk assessments. can be seen here. These are all the cyber risk assessments done in the risk application. These are all the IT controls, right? How many of them are compliant? How many of them are non-compliant? Some of them have not even been tested. These are all the issues related to IT, major incidents, and then this comes from continuity plans, business continuity plans, right? This information gets pulled in from there, the latest DR exercise. So the DR exercise and business continuity planning, that happens at a process or an underlying dependency level. We pull that in and then we roll it up to the service. That's how these two are overlapping. And if you had seen in the dependencies, there was also RTO, RPO, and the latest exercise result, right? So that will be pulled in as well. So these are the suggestions for the IT person who's looking at the technology dashboard. So you will be able to see IT-related controls that are failing and impacting multiple services, IT-related risk that is classified as high residual risk, impacting multiple services as well. So same thing, you can flip it to facilities. So this would be the facility manager. They would be able to see how many facilities are they managing and their context on how they are supporting the business. What is the resilience posture when it comes to facility assets? If someone from the procurement team logs in, they'll be able to log into the suppliers filter. They'll be able to flip it to that, and then they'll be able to see how many suppliers are we dealing with today, how are we supporting the business, and what are the resilience postures and different metrics around suppliers today. So these are the different metrics, dashboards, visualizations, and the forms that we have released for operational resilience. What we didn't discuss in detail is the self-attestation piece. This is also a survey-driven attestation. You'd be able to select the different services. You'd be able to select the different importance assessments and the scenario analysis, and say for, let's say, year 2023, we are done, and you can add an electronic signature and complete it. And then once this is done, there's a PDF file that will get generated along with the person who's signing this off, right? So where you'd be able to see this attestation is for these 4 services, and these are the assessments. So this also comes with a default document template that you guys can configure. So this was the overview of operational resilience, guys. If you guys have any questions or if you have any further queries, please feel free to reach out to us and then we can take them up.
Yeah, so Aswin, that went long, but there are a couple questions. I don't know if we've answered all of them. If you want to just take a quick peek. But thank you so much. I mean, that's why I said in the beginning that major versus minor enhancements, there was a lot that went into this release. So thank you and your team. Do you want to just take a quick look at the Q&A and see if there's anything that you want to address? Otherwise, we can follow up with anyone we need to after.
Yeah, there are like 3 or 4 questions. We can quickly go over that. So there was one question where whether it is the best way to do is using different templates for assessments. Yes, you can create multiple templates. We can target it for a specific set of output, right? That can be done. Or if you want to start using it as it is in the product today, and then as and when the program matures, if you want to move into multiple assessment templates, you can do that also, right? So you can start doing the crawl, walk, run kind of an approach. The next question is, issues added from the scenario analysis, do they pop up in the business services page? Yes. So whatever you add in the scenario analysis as issues, they do come up in your business services page. Everything that is related to the service or the underlying dependencies that will get pulled in. Might not be immediately. There is an scheduled job that runs and populates those dashboards. So once that runs, it will come up there. What is the action that a user needs to take in the scenario analysis? The action that we are tracking in the scenario analysis is tracked via our issue management, where you have an action plan and issue tracking system, Sharad. That's where we have planned the findings and issues and actions to be tracked. What happens if the business service hierarchy changes over the years? So that's the last question. Typically, the updated data model will start pulling in the information and it will start dissecting it based on the scheduled job that runs. It runs typically once in a day. You can also manually trigger that, right? So that option is there. But once that job runs, it will start the reporting in the new hierarchy fashion. So it all will get aligned to the newer data model. that is how it is. We have taken care of that.
Great. Thank you so much for all that you've shared today. And there's a lot of different ways to connect with us after this. If you do have specific questions for us, we'd be happy to answer them. Aswin always makes himself available to the detriment of probably his personal time, but he is amazingly willing to answer questions. So thank you for asking all that you did today. If you want to connect with us in other ways, there is always our community. And as I said before, there's additional live on ServiceNow webinars that you can participate in. So these is, if you want to use the link was shared in the chat, there is a QR code, but that concludes our session for today. Thank you, Aswin, for giving us so much time, so much detail. Really appreciate it. It was a great presentation.
Thank you. Yeah. All right. Bye. Have a good day, guys.